Time traveling is totally tubular. This is your look at the new NECA toys, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, Michelangelo. The bodacious line of time-traveling turtles returns with NECA's release of Turtles in Time Series 2. Wave 2 consists of Shredder, Leatherhead, Raph, and Mikey. Michelangelo includes nunchucks, nunchuck spinning effect, interchangeable hands, hoverboard, and display stand. Ready to go off gallivanting on another time-traveling adventure? Not so fast. The first thing we're going to do, though, is figure out how tall Turtles in Time Michelangelo stands. And then feel free to play around with dinosaurs if you want to. According to my trusty tape measure, you're looking at the figure of Michelangelo standing 5.3 inches in height. And switching that to centimeters, then you're looking at the figure standing 13.6, so over 13.5 centimeters tall. Let's get some comparisons in there. Here is Michelangelo next to his lime green colored self. Sort of Michelangelo as he appears more in the majority of the cartoon series or the merchandising turtles that are on blankets and towels and stickers and all that other stuff that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were on back in the day. If you prefer, though, your Michelangelo would be slightly darker. I prefer Michelangelo would be a little bit more of the darker variety. Here is Michelangelo, how he appears sort of in the opener of the first handful of episodes. The coloring of the turtles I prefer the most. But you can sort of see how they all compare to one another. All the same turtle, yes. All the same mold, sure. But the color scheme is what really does change and make each unique to one another. And seeing as we've already had a look at him as well, we'll just move over Michelangelo and we'll bring in Raphael. So you guys can see the difference between the two. Really not much does change. I mean, short of the colors on the elbow pads, the wristbands, and of course the knee pads, all changing in color. The turtle bodies themselves don't look like they change much at all. I mean, again, it's just a simple swap of taking off those heads, swapping them around, and again, just short of a few color changes. There's not really that much that changes from Raphael to Michelangelo here. Checking out the figure's accessories, seeing as we did start the review with Raph looking at his hover sled, no sense in changing the pace now. Michelangelo does also get his own hover sled. To bring in Raphael so you can see the difference between the two, the mold is exactly the same as well as all the colors except for the area that the turtle is standing on top of. Color coordinating it, so of course Raphael's looks more like reddish color, and Michelangelo's is sort of more a lemony orange. It's a very bright actual orange. We flip it around to the back here, the fins are exactly in the same place as well as the thrusters, and the hole placement for the display stand also in the exact same place. They are clones to one another, short of again the color being slightly different. Rather interesting, though, is that the color that they used for Michelangelo's foot area happens to be also the exact same color that's on the back area with the thrusters. And this part would be the exact same on all the turtles' sleds. There's a back look at what the thrusters look like very nicely on the thrusters. And there's also little highlighted areas. All things I'm talking about right now are probably the same things I'm sure I mentioned with the review of Raphael. If you look on the underside, though, there's that peg hole. We can go ahead and address now the display stand. Kind of looks like a megaphone, doesn't it? I don't think it would be echoing much of anything. There's a little ball joint right at the top there. You can sort of understand where that's going. It's going right into that hole there. And they didn't actually make it even a circle either. That's sort of like a hexagon. So it does catch the ball joint, holds it in place. Just take the ball joint, plug it in like so, and you've got yourself instant articulation. Fancy that, where you can actually move the sled around. Too sharp abruptly on an angle there, and sometimes the sled does pop off the ball joint. So when you do put this in place, just know that you do have some posability. It goes up, it goes down, it goes back, and it goes forth, but too much of it too quickly. And like I said, that sled's going to pop right out of place. So we'll go ahead and snap that in place. We'll put that to the side. Michelangelo does come included with a pair of nunchucks. Rather interesting about the nunchucks, though, is while they may look somewhat familiar, perhaps that you've seen these before with the release of the cartoon variety, Though they are similar in the handle doesn't change much between the two. There we go. There's not much that does change to the handles, short of the fact that NECA actually just put some panel lining in there. But the sculpt on the handles are exactly the same. That's where the similarities stop. If you look at the chains are different. Not only are the links larger, but I want to bet, without short of guessing and counting the numbers, that the links are actually less on the Turtles in Time release than on the cartoon release. Rather interesting that they didn't use the exact same chain from one to the other. So it's not simply just, let's slap on a new coat of paint and call these the Turtles in Time release. Sort of in the same way that Raphael had different sai, the nunchucks are actually very different as well, being the fact that their chains are different. Other than that, there's not much that's different to them. They also do have a section that can detach. Just remove the handle there from the end of the part that attaches, of course, to the chain. And then you've got this extra little piece. What are we going to do with that extra little piece? Well, we could also bring in the spinning nunchuck effect that also came included and packaged with the turtles, the cartoon turtles. We'll go ahead and just plug this in place. And basically what it allows you to do is it allows you to spin it. That's very, very cool. I love the little spiral sculpts that they put in there. So it actually does look like the nunchucks are spinning around. I do find like the hinge joint is a little on the loose side. It's not as tight, for example, as this one right here. This is the one that came packaged with the Michelangelo and Raphael lighter lime green colored turtles. That's why also this part right here isn't the same color as the nunchuck that we just looked at. This one's a little bit on the lighter side. But other than that, really, the nunchucks don't change. The spinning feature, that is. And short of, again, just the fact that the hinge joint is a little loose on the newer release, I just liking the fact that we actually get this to come included, so you can spin this around if you want to. Hey, where'd the hover sled go? Well, actually, I just moved it to the side. We've already had a look at it. But now we can have a look also at the interchangeable hands that come included with Michelangelo. A thumbs up, or I guess for that matter as well, a thumbs down, or undecided. You can have thumbs sideways. But again, you get some nice interchangeable hands that come included with the figure. If you do want to swap the hands out, you know how easy that actually can be. Just grab the forearm, just like that, and just wiggle this off. Just pop that right off. If you're having some difficulty at all removing joints, you can also use the hot water trick, or you can also use the hair dryer trick as well. Some people prefer to use a hair dryer just because you can kind of blow it onto that area without actually having to get anything wet. But a good thumbs up. There you go, from Michelangelo. I always like that you get these included. And of course, because they are the exact same color, this was the one that came included with Raphael. If you want to swap it out then to Michelangelo's, it's not to say that you have to keep it cemented in the idea that you have to keep this one as his preferred hand. You can mix and match these if you want to. We're going to keep the thumbs up in the hand for the time being, just because I like the look of that. Looking at Michelangelo, though, as we've done with Raphael, we can bring in a couple of comparisons. Let's bring in the more lime-colored, lighter green-colored Michelangelo so you can see the difference between the two. Again, drawing your attention to those peepers. He's got dilated pupils on the Turtles in Time release, likely to make them stand out a little bit more when you're seeing them on the arcade screen versus the one that came with the cartoon-inspired turtle. The mouth and the head sculpt doesn't change after that, nor does really the body. Yes, there is the little area emblem there on the front with Mikey, in this case M, that does go away completely with the idea of using a black background, instead of going all to this route instead. We can reach off and grab my favorite of the Mikeys, and this one right here. It's about the same gray on the circle, but the M obviously is a little bit more standing out on this version of Michelangelo to the one that we get with the Turtles in Time release. Again, you can see, really, using the exact same mold, how two turtles could be completely on polar ends different from one another. Looking at them, I almost would even guess they not be the exact same mold, but they are the exact same mold from one to the other. Even the back of the shell stays the same from one to the other. Whereas we bring in the turtles here, this is again the lime green colored Michelangelo. You can see that the shading, normally in the past we would have had shading here, and it still carries over to some of the cartoon themed turtles. These ones don't happen to have them, but there sometimes is a shading that's noted there on the back area of their body. I recall, there we go, the one that came include the darker green Michelangelo had that dark strip of shading located on the back of his arm. The Turtles in Time, of course, does away with that completely in favor of the more blockier, pixelated look. That does, admittingly, turn away some collectors. Maybe some don't enjoy the sight of seeing their turtles with all these blocky Minecraft pixels all over their bodies. It's all over his shell. Of course, it's even all across the sash of his belt. It's really everywhere. I personally like it myself because it looks a little bit more like they're pixelated sprites in the game. But I can certainly understand why some people may not dig this design of Michelangelo, preferring instead to go with maybe the cartoon route. That blockiness is everywhere. Ironically, it's not even on his headband. It was interesting that they left it off here, but they kept it everywhere else on his face. Still has the posability there on the back of his headband. It's just basically a peg, so you just rotate this back and forth if you wanted to. If there is a little bit of stubbornness, I would say, rotating this, just kind of look at it and make sure you're not twisting this. If you're causing stress marks to the back of that peg, you're more inclined to probably just be twisting this off and breaking the peg and not even know that you're doing it. Like, again, the detailing on the back of the shell, pulled back and more simplistic in its color scheme, and then instead bringing this in, the pixelated look that we've already discussed. Michelangelo's color scheme, both in his headband, his elbow pads, wrist bands, and as well as his knees, are all a very light colored orange. In fact, it's actually the lightest color of orange of all the Michelangelos that we looked at before. Again, bringing in all three of them. All of the oranges, ironically enough, are all different from one another, and they don't share the same shade at all. Looking at Michelangelo's articulation, his head rotates all the way around. I did notice on this figure that's a little on the stiff side, but it's nothing that a little bit of patience and a little bit of moving that joint back and forth won't solve. He does also have a secondary ball joint, which I may have missed and not mentioned at all in the look at Raphael, but he does also have a secondary ball joint at the base of the neck. So he does technically have two of them. One here, and then one right at the top there. And that adds for some additional posability, both in the head up and down, and you can also rock it back and forth that way. Shoulders hinge out, and again, you're only going to be getting about an 80-degree angle bend. Michelangelo's arms are a little bit more easier to move than I had with the Raphael. Raphael was a little tighter on the shoulder area there, but I ended up just taking the hairdryer technique and just kind of heating it around that joint and soften things up just enough that I was able to free, just kind of loosening a little bit more than what it was. But the arms do rotate all the way around, no problems there whatsoever. He has a swivel on the bicep, which allows the forearms to rotate all the way around this way. He has a hinge in the elbow, and he also rotates the forearm on that same hinge joint. Whatever hand you decide to go with, again, I'm going with the thumbs up for the time being. His hand rotates all the way around, and you can also hinge it back and forth as well. When it comes to the torso, it might be a little harder to see, so let's go ahead and just move the arm out of the way. He has a ball joint. It's sort of concealed behind the sash. This allows this joint to hinge back and forth. A little harder sometimes to see it because you end up resulting in moving the bottom waist area. But if you actually hold it, you can sort of see there is a ball joint working behind the scenes, allowing that torso to move up and down and rotate back and forth. In addition to that, he does have, of course, the waist swivel, which is basically, again, just all that ball joint working behind the scenes, but that does allow the legs to twist if you want to have the legs slightly off-keltered. You can also hinge the legs out quite easily. Again, I don't know why this humbled reviewer always draws the attention to the undercarriage of these figures, but again, you can see the little ratcheted joint there working behind the scenes. I like that they do use those. It keeps the joints on these figures nice and tight and prevents those loose dinner bell legs that we've seen certainly before with other figures. Double hinge joint on the knee. And of course, as it comes to the feet as well, nothing is different between this one and all the other turtle figures that we've looked at. The feet hinge up and down. You can rotate them all the way around if you want to, and you can rock them back and forth. So there is Michelangelo. Admittingly, not everybody's cup of tea. Not some people, not all people, I would say, enjoy the Turtles in Time figure releases. I prefer them. I like the design of being able to, I like the idea of being able to have more than one of my turtles. So with all the other turtles that have been released in all the various different color schemes, I can have my quartet of turtles in each of their own designated colors. Of course, when it comes to displaying these, I don't tend to all put them together because then, yes, you will see that they're all sharing the exact same molds to one another. No, when it comes to displaying these, as I've certainly said in the past, I like to usually display them categorized. So like all my Turtles in Time figures will be all grouped together, and they won't be standing, nor will they be displayed with the other turtles that we've looked at before. Whether it was Turtles in Time or the original Turtles the arcade game, usually I was the kid that was picking either Leonardo or Michelangelo. I was really the best kid to have around because most people either went to Leonardo or Donatello because of the reach of their weapons. Let's face facts, who really picked Raphael? Raphael was that kid that came in late. All the other joysticks were occupied, and the kid thought to themselves, crap, now I'm stuck with Raphael. So sorry, Raphael, I like you in the cartoon, I just don't like you in actual Turtles games. You're one of the worst turtles to find. Nonetheless, though, I'm thrilled now that we finally finish off our Turtles quartet by adding Michelangelo to the mix. That gives us now all 4 turtles, as well as Shredder, as well as Leatherhead. I'm hoping it's not going to stop there. With the designs changing to some of these characters when it came to the Turtles in Time release, I'm hoping that we're still going to be getting more Turtles in Time releases from NECA Toys, that it doesn't just stop simply at the 4 turtles, Shredder, and Leatherhead. Despite that, though, we've still got a couple of foot soldiers to throw into the mix as well. Certainly, I would love to see, like I said, more of the Turtles in Time figures come out, along with the other Turtles cartoon stuff that we're getting. Like, still give us a lot of Turtles cartoon stuff, but don't forget the little bit of love that you need to be throwing the way of Turtles in Time, because these are fun-looking figures, especially for the fact that they come included with hover sleds. I like kind of the way I've displayed Michelangelo leaning with thumbs up against his hovering sled. It might be actually just the way I display the figures, because I don't want to have them all simply on their hover sleds. That's fine and good, but I'd like to mix it up a little bit when it comes to the displays, so I probably will be displaying Michelangelo similar to what you're looking at right now in final looks. Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of the Turtles in Time figures. Have you picked them up for yourself? Or would you be considering the idea of picking them up even if you already have the other cartoon turtles? Is there enough interest in this line that you would want to see more Turtles in Time releases from NECA Toys? Also, speaking of NECA Toys, I'd like to send out a big thank you to NECA for providing the samples that we've had a look at over the last couple of reviews. If you're enjoying the content you're seeing and you haven't yet had the chance to do it, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below in the video, just below the video, just above the video description. And also turn on that bell notification. Just keep in mind as well, Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when you'll find new videos popping up on this channel. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.